Welcome back to Liquid Lunch. It's time for the magnetic marketing moment with your marketing magnet, Jeanette Burke.
Yes, and we're going to be talking now about environmental marketing, how green it is. So, if your customers are environmentally concerned, then showing them that you have an environmental concern can only mean good things for you. It'll help you to attract more customers and also up your bottom line. But it will only do that if you put into your marketing, green marketing or environmental marketing practices, three specific things to make that marketing campaign
Now, wait a sec.
work.
Before you get into this, Jeanette,
Yes.
I don't get it.
Oh,
Like,
good, I'm
wha-
glad. Goodbye. Ask me some bloody questions. So I don't have to do everything myself, man.
well, that's what I'm here for, Jeanette.
Okay.
But what I don't get is, how come green and environmental stuff has grown so much in popularity?
Okay, so let's start there, and I'll tell you it has. It is now $26.6 million green incentives and green marketing. And that's for organic. And non organic is $1.8 billion in marketing revenue. And the reason it's become that way is because the 21st century corporate agenda was environmental concerns became part of the corporate agenda and corporate governance. And so companies started to adapt business policies that were geared towards saving the environment and being more friendly towards the environment. And they did it largely because of government legislation. And then when they started to see incentive for it, such as savings in costs, transportation costs, inventory costs, uh, production costs, labor, um, all your regular operational costs, they then saw an incentive for it. So you could say that the government was behind it first, then they drove business. But also, what happened is you have a large segment of the population who are consumers that are moving away from traditional consumption, which is traditional marketing is based on consumption and materialism. They're moving away from that. So, in order to ingrain them and make them part of your marketing, or make your marketing resonate with them and make them your customers, is to show them that you actually care about the environment too, because that's their agenda.
Because the people have become concerned
More,
about the environment.
yes,
So when they see a company that shares that concern and is doing stuff, selling products, services,
yes.
policies to help the environment, then people resonate with that, and that's going to attract them to those companies, right?
Correct. So when we look at environmental marketing, you can look at it almost as a win-win perspective for all parties involved. Right? The government has a responsibility, as do businesses, to reduce toxins and other environmental concerns. And people want that too because toxins aren't good for the environment, nor are they good for us. I mean, look,
Oh my goodness.
disease is up,
You should
right?
have been here last week, Jeanette. We got scared to death by a fellow from Denver who was talking about toxins in the environment.
But so we can see why it's become a hot topic because of it's all win-win, right? A lot of people want to preserve the environment
Right.
for a lot of reasons for our generation, for future generations.
Yeah.
Business has an incentive, and the
Yeah.
thing is, we always think that big business or corporate governance is really restricted to corporations. It's not. It's restricted to all businesses. And there's a lot of good reason to want to do this because of the tremendous cost savings in all that I pointed out: transportation and inventory,
Right.
labor,
Yeah, you know what's
all
gr-
these costs that when you reduce on yourself, will not only up your bottom line, but you can pass those savings on to the consumer and also be the good guy because you're showing that you care.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned about three components.
Yes.
that
to make it effective,
to make
your green marketing effective, it has to satisfy 3 components.
What are those components?
Well, the first one is you have to be authentic. And by this I mean you must practice what you preach. So if you really are concerned about the environment and you start taking on environmental policies in your business practices, you have to communicate those policies clearly and concisely, and you have to follow them. You have to lead by example. So, for example, if you choose to only use eco-friendly paper or reproduce on letterhead that is biodegradable, let's say, or use your business cards on only biodegradable paper, and you make these conscious choices about it, you have to follow through. So let's say you start there, or let's say you start with, a recycle program, or anything that wherever you start, you have to follow through. You have to be authentic, so that you're believable, right? Because it's easy to say I want to be environmentally friendly, but actions are really what speaks the words.
All right. So okay. So
you have
be
to be
authentic.
consistent with it in all areas of your marketing once you decide to be environmentally friendly.
Are there 2 other components?
There are 2 other components. You have to educate your prospects about why you're doing this, so they understand why it's significant and important to you, or otherwise you leave them with the impression of, so what, who cares? Why are you doing this? There's a cause here. And it really is about getting them involved in the cause and getting them to support it, and understanding that in so doing it, there's a tremendous benefit to them too. Not just because they're saving the planet, not just because they're not throwing another piece of plastic into a landfill, which takes I don't know how many years to become
Biodegradable.
Yeah. Once you start these things, you have to they have to know why you're doing it. You have to support it with a cause.
All right.
There has to be meaning behind it. So, for example, whether you've chosen to not pass out brochures because it's taking paper and a lot of people throw out brochures and flyers. So you've now made a stance that you're only going to do flyers, e-notices, e-zines, whatever, and only do it that way because that's your stance. Then you tell your customers why that is, and why you want them to join in on that.
Fantastic. You do that, don't you?
I do that, and actually I have to say that I have become very concerned about the environment, and I'm more and more interested in adopting environmental policies into my business practices, because I believe that I'm dealing a lot with women, and women from the onset of the feminist movement have always been very concerned with preserving the environment, and I am too, also because of the toxins and the illnesses and what have you. So
yes.
For me, I've done a lot of things to incorporate environmental into my business practices, and I'm going to be doing a lot more.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Okay, what's the third component?
The third component is making sure that your participants participate in your campaign.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? Well, first you have to decide which green aspect are you going to go with. So maybe it's brochures, maybe it's moving your live events to the webinar so that you can save on fuel and energy costs as well. Maybe it's like I said, using biodegradable materials, not passing out brochures or flyers, but instead directing people to a website, or sending e-voices rather than paper traditional invoice, do it by e-voice. Once you've decided what your campaign's going to be, then you've got to get your participants participating in it with you. So what we've seen typically is in grocery stores, for example, getting rid of the plastic bag and having these new bio energy bags.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that? I don't know if the same thing's happening to you.
Is that more people are
Every
asking
time
for
you go to the
plastic?
store, you